is going on, RotoGrinders? Dean here. It's Dean 7904 if you want to get all technical. I mean, it's 5:30 on the dot on the East Coast, 2:30 on the West Coast, 4:30 Tennessee time, which of course is the time of the flagship show here at RotoGrinders. It's called Grinderslive, and it's an intimate show. It's just the two of us. It's myself and Stevie. 11-game slate. NBA just locked, by the way. I had the NBA scramble. Good times for sure. And just before this, I was doing a sports card show. We do a sports card show here at RotoGrinders, Stevie. So I may, if anything goofy happened in baseball in the last hour and a half, I've dug into the slate earlier. I don't know if anything weird has happened. I don't know if JD Martinez is in the lineup. I don't know if Acuna is. I'll pull up the RG lineup page in just a second. But how are things in your world, Stevie? How are we feeling about the slate?
Acuna is not in the lineup. JD Martinez is not in the lineup.
Okay.
Everything's good, man. My son fell right before the show, so like my head's somewhere else. But I'm good. Ready to break down the slate. I'm with you, and like you said, it's a 2-man booth, man. Like fun times.
Yeah, it's not a full slate. It's not 15 games. We don't need 3 people clogging up the screen. We're enough for the show, I suppose. Oh, like and subscribe. What's up, YouTube? Feel free to like and subscribe. We do appreciate that. It helps out with analytics and all. That's way too technical for me, but apparently that's how channels grow. If you get likes and subscribes, that's my understanding, Stevie. So yeah, there you go. You can graze it, you can caress, you can tap, you can smash, whatever adjective you want to use as far as hitting the like button. It's all yours. Have at it. I've not seen anything goofy as far as weather. At least there wasn't earlier today. I'm pulling up Ross. I imagine this is around the time where he updates his page. I'm guessing
everything
there's nothing
looks
working.
good. Yeah, everything looks good.
All right. And is anything popping from a weather edge perspective?
You know what? I haven't looked at that yet. There was one game that I did want to check up. The Dodgers, Grant brought up on the podcast that it was going to be like hot in LA, but it looks like it's not going to be hot. And Weather Edge tells us that we're going to see negative home runs there. So yeah, nothing really popping. I think one of the most interesting things is Minnesota Chicago. I like that game a little bit. And like we're seeing, red on Weather Edge, and like that's not what you want to see.
No, that's not what you want to see. And let's see, what's the 55-game sample size for what it's worth? Negative 16% homers. And you mentioned the Dodgers. It's a big sample, 347 games. There's nothing to do with who's pitching. It's strictly weather related and how games have played out with similar weather. And 345 previous samples, a hit of 8.5% as far as homers. There was one I thought there was a jump. Baltimore plus 9.8% as far as homers. Kansas City plus 9.7% as far as homers. That's 97 games. And that's 97 games that Matt Harvey didn't partake in, I imagine. So you adjust your projections accordingly. And you know what, Stevie? People are like, well, what are they showing off? What is this Weather Edge? It's Ross Weather Tool. You can buy it a la carte, but it comes free with your RG subscription. So there you go. Get the whole deal. You get and I know he was keeping track of it last year as far as like wins and losses, and he would just kind of make a wagers, I want to say, on the Sharp Side app, just kind of like going to track it. And I remember him saying it was in the positive. I don't know what he's doing with it this year, to be honest. I don't want to speak for him. He can speak for himself. He's going to be on later on Crunch Time with One Cheese is Good. Dave Potts will tell you what's going on weather-wise, and then Dave Potts, of course, will give you all the baseball-related information. I mentioned the Sharp Side app, Stevie. Did you have a winner for us today? I did not. I didn't call mine out yesterday, but mine was a winner for the record. I just forgot to tell the people. I kept it all to myself. But what do you have for me?
Yeah, man. I took the over in the Minnesota Chicago White Sox game, currently sitting at 9. I think that's a game that, we're going to see more than 9 runs scored, hopefully. Michael Pineda coming back. Dallas Keuchel doesn't really strike anybody else against that high-powered Minnesota offense. So I went with the over in that game. I think that I'm hoping we can, see bad Michael Pineda who likes to leave the ball over the plate.
We're just seeing Michael Pineda for the first time, and it's really hard to sort of gauge what he's going to be. He's coming back from a substance issue, I believe, or something? He was doing something. I don't know what is exactly. He had a big suspension. Just an easy way of saying that, I suppose. And he's got to face those Chicago power bats, and Pineda's a guy who leaves a lot of strikes over the plate, and also he could be reverse splitsy too, and facing all those power righties. Probably not the best recipe, not the softest of landing spots to come back here against Chicago. And that was my pick yesterday, for the record. I like Chicago, and they were minus 140, I think, exactly on the dot. And that's important. And I'm sure Devin, our fabulous multitasking producer, he showed you guys on the screen, like if you get a streak of 6 or more, and then it goes like in different brackets, 6 or more, and then you get I think $5 or $10 for FanDuel dollars, and then You get longer streaks. The much longer your streak gets, the more money you make off of that. And again, that should be up on the screen for you guys to take a look at. But it's key to remember in order for your lock bets, and you have to hit the lock button, obviously. It's got to be minus 140 or less. You can't lock in the Dodgers and get credit for that. You can't pick the 3-1 favorites, the minus 300s. It doesn't work that way. And the biggest favorite you can take is minus 140 or less. So minus 140, minus 120, minus 130. If you want to take a dog, by all means, have at it. That works too. But yeah, just in case people are not aware, follow that Sharpside app. I imagine the link's going to be dropped in chat as well. Devin's all over it. Screenshot. What do we have as far as the slate today, Stevie? Because my screenshot is bats. Not many arms. Bats.
Yeah, like I think there are some top end options. Obviously, like Nola, Corbin, like they have tremendous upside. If Urias were to pitch deeper, like he has upside as well. He just doesn't really pitch deep. So like I'm with you. I'm more focused on like bats. I play 1 to 3 lineups a day, and like I built my 3 lineups before we actually got started here. And like I didn't have to reach for anything. I got everything that I wanted out of the 3 teams that I like today. And I like Lindblom just makes it so much easier. Like Hauser was a good option too when we had thought that it was going to be him, but like Lindblom being there, Valdez, Pleasic, like there's just so many guys like under 9K on DraftKings that like are just standout obvious plays that have tremendous upside.
All right, you didn't mention him. You kind of skipped over him. It's not the best matchup necessarily, but I would argue the best pitcher, just like if all things created, being equal as far as the intangibles, is Aaron Nola. Now he's the most expensive guy.
I mentioned him.
Oh, did you? My apologies.
It's a 2-man show, and you're still not paying attention, Dean.
I heard all the other names, but I didn't hear Nola. All right, well, yeah. So DK versus FanDuel, I'm not sure if you're playing a DK exclusive or not, but I'm sort of going back and forth on FanDuel, and I might chop my lineups over there as far as my main pitcher. But right now, it's not Nola. It's Valdez. It's a little bit cheaper, and he's even got a better price over on DK. We'll talk about him in a second. But let's kind of work our way down. Talk to me about Nola against Washington. Best pitcher. I think I rostered him just one time this year, the one where he got absolutely his face punched in, unfortunately. But can't hold that against him. It's daily fantasy sports, Stevie. All we care about is today, not tomorrow, not yesterday, not 2 weeks ago when he blew up my lineups. Tell me why you like Nola tonight.
Like I think Nola is the most talented pitcher on the slate. I think a lot of people would, tend to agree with that. But like when we're looking at like the matchups on the slate for everybody, like, it's hard not to just kind of pay down and get the bats that you want. If I had money, if I have money, I play Nola. Like in cash games, I probably play Nola. Like Lindblom's so cheap and like Valdez is so cheap, like you can make the argument just to go to those guys like that, and even in cash games. So I think Nola's the most talented pitcher. He's been fantastic this season. So if you want to pay up for him, by all means pay up for him. We have a ton of cheap bats, like Naylor's minimum salary, Naquan's really cheap, Hayward's really cheap. Like let's just be honest, there's a ton of cheap bats. There's plenty of ways to go.
DK makes it so easy. Like you really can't get whatever you want.
On FanDuel though, like
go ahead.
It's Valdez for me. Like I have some Lindblom too, like just because he's so cheap and I think he has just as much upside. But I don't know if you read expert survey today or not, Dean. But like my hot take is Valdez is going to throw a no-hitter tonight. So like,
oh wow, that is scalding. Like, I do appreciate that.
Yeah, like I think that like that's the type of upside that he has today, and it's a little bit tougher for Nola matchup wise. So yeah. So Nola against Washington. If you stretch it back the last 2 years, I'm pulling up the plate IQ here as far as Nola. 28% K rate, really, really good. 9% walk rate, a little concerning. That's not obviously ideal necessarily. Thames in the lineup, a lot of power, but also he strikes out a good bit, 29.9%. You got Taylor. I called out Michael A. Taylor yesterday for striking out a ton, and he banged out a homer on me. So, right, egg on my face. I'm still going to say it's great to see him in the lineup because, in theory, he's a couple Ks on layaway. 22.5% collectively, so it's not a great strikeout lineup. Turner's a contact hitter. Soto's contact and power is, he checks all the wrong boxes for you. Howie Kendrick is another just professional hitter, and he's getting better and better the older he gets, it seems.
So it's not the perfect lineup to see as far as Ks outside of Taylor and Garcia, the youngster, is only striking at 10.8% in a small sample size. So that pushes Nola down a little bit. And you're talking about on FanDuel specifically, and hey, you like the guy that's going to throw a no hitter. And I saw somebody in chat asking about it. Your cash pitcher, and for me, the cap is a lot tighter on FanDuel. Valdez, I want to say, is $300 cheaper than Nola, and he's got a better matchup than Nola. So that's probably going to be my cash king guy. It's where it's at right now in my shell lineup, and I assume that's where you're at as well, too, if you just got to pick one of them.
Like, I'm not playing cash tonight. If I was playing cash tonight, it would be Valdez.
Yeah, I mean, you said he's going to throw in a hitter. And, you look at that lineup, it's like, who's going to get a hit off him? Which guy? I don't know who it's going to be.
Now, I will say, you're talking a lot about FanDuel, and, when you look at projected ownership on FanDuel,
what are we seeing?
Want to back up. You see Nola at 22%, you see Valdez at 28%. Lindblom at 14%. I feel like that's doable. It's still really high relative to how many arms we have on the slate. But the lineups that you can build with him on FanDuel, you could play anybody you want pretty much. So in tournaments, I definitely see going down to Lindblom on FanDuel and just kind of being different that way. But there's also another cheap guy that I don't hate on DraftKings that we'll talk about, I guess, when we get there.
Yeah, so let's have the Lindblom conversation. Stretching back to last year, the Ks are great, obviously, 31.3%. The walk's not very good, 10.4%.
Well, he didn't pitch in the bigs last year, Dean.
Well, is that this year and last year?
Okay, just this year. He was in the KBO the last 2 years.
That's right. Well, it's the same numbers, but yeah, okay. I was putting the hitters on there too. I'm on the plate IQ, but that's a fair point. I should know that. I remember he was in the KBO, and just sort of yeah. All right. My concern is, how many baseballs is he going to throw? Milwaukee, as an organization, they have a good bullpen, and as an organization, they seem to have decided that they don't let their pitchers go a third time around. That's just as a collective. Now, granted, they don't have a Garrett Cole or a horse like that, but Lindblom's last game, 4 innings, 75 pitches. Before that, 4 innings, 68 pitches. Before that, 5 innings and 90 pitches. We love that. Before that, 4 innings, 88 pitches. You're begging. You're begging for 5 innings for a chance to get that W. Almost definitely is not going to get that quality start. Now, that's not going to make or break you on FanDuel, especially. You can make the argument, and of course, it's right there. You get to load up on bats, and okay, my pitcher scores 15 or 20 points less than your pitcher. I'll make up for that with 1 home run and then some with all the big bats I get the roster. Now, the other part of that is, bats are less predictive than arms, and the worst bats are going to beat the best bats much more often than the worst arms are going to beat the best arms. But the other part of that is there's not really amazing arms. They're good arms, good, but nothing spectacular, not what we saw yesterday. Don't play the results. Garrett Cole was still a good play. And then we saw, Glasnow crush as well, and there's a couple other guys in that slate that were really, really good as far as the pitchers, so the opportunity cost was greater. So that's kind of my push-pull, Stevie, as far as Lindblom on FanDuel. DK, a better play, safer play as an SP2. You get your big arm, and, again, you're not missing out on, the top echelon Bieber types today. So take me through that thought process because, like you said, Lindblom, you've made the lineups on FanDuel. I haven't done it yet. I'm going to do a post-show. But I imagine your lineups are stacked.
They're everything you want. Build whatever you want. If you like the Braves like I do, you can easily stack the Braves. So here's the thing about Lindblom's pitch count, right? So I watched a lot of that Pittsburgh game. He walked someone, and then Polanco took him deep, and he had struggled with command in the inning before that. So okay, he's done. They're gonna be quick to pull him if he's not pitching well. Well, the matchup, you got to play the matchup game. Detroit's terrible. They not only do they strike out a ton, they don't have a ton of power in this lineup. So I could see him going 5 or 6 innings here. He hasn't reached 6 innings. That's a reach. A hot take is Lindblom making 6 innings because he hasn't done that yet this season. But
yeah,
he could easily go 5 here. He could easily get the win. His biggest issue is command. It wasn't a huge issue with him in the KBO. So I don't know if we're going to see maybe some positive regression on those numbers, but I do value tags on Lineup HQ on Tuesdays. And one of my reasoning to writing him up obviously is the matchup. But if you look into his BABIP and he has a 3.7 xFIP instead of a 6.3 ERA. And it's a lot of it is BABIP related, very high BABIP. And for a team that strikes out more than a lot of other teams, like we could see some really big, like positive regression in the matchup here for Lindblom. So he's going to be massive chalk. Like he's going to be super popular. He's going to be over 25%.
Is that FanDuel or
DraftKings.
DK? Okay, DraftKings. Okay. I didn't think
like FanDuel, I don't think he gets that high because, I think it's really easy to fit in Valdez on FanDuel, and I think he'll be massive chalk over there. So, but yeah, like just overall, like look at the lineup. Like there are 6 guys in this lineup with strikeout rates over 26% this season. Like, and everyone's over 19%. Like you're not going to have another matchup like that tonight.
Yeah, so another thing to your point, we're looking at the plate IQ right now as well, and I have it just for this season as far as those Detroit hitters. And somebody in chat's asking why you're picking on Detroit. This is why you're picking on Detroit. You talked about what is Lindblom's one of his biggest issues, 10.4% walk rate, right? Collectively, this team, Detroit, they strike out a ton, and they don't walk.
They swing at junk.
It's Goodrum and Cabrera at 9% and 10.9%. That's pretty solid. That's pretty good. But collectively this year, it's 5.5%. That's a horrendous number. And they all strike out at 27.6%. My issue is how far is he going to go, Lindblom, but also how far do you have to have him go, especially when you consider his asking price. Better suited on DK than he is on FanDuel, but, I mean, certainly somebody you can play on both sites. By the way, no Trevor Story in this Colorado lineup. Kevin Pillar is your number 2 hitter for the Colorado Rockies tonight. How about that? I wonder if Gausman was one of the guys you're considering as an SP2 because I thought he was interesting before. I'm just a Gausman truther, for better or for worse. Was he the cheapie you were talking about, or not so much?
So I think it definitely depends on the site. Looking at like Gausman, I think he's in play. Like it's still in cores. Like he's pitched great this season. Like he looks great. Like on FanDuel, I think he is someone you could potentially pivot off of Lindblom because that you're going to get more pitches from Gausman. If he's pitching well, they've let him go over 100 pitches a couple times this season. So, like realistically, like if you want to play him over on FanDuel to be different, I think like that is obviously an option. I like Ian Anderson a lot on DraftKings to kind of pivot off of Lindblom. Like the Red Sox lineup without JD, they traded some guys away, like no Mitch Moreland, who he's been the best hitter in this lineup.
No Pillar.
Like no Pillar, but like Pillar, like I don't think that's too much of a downgrade. But like a lot of young hitters, like a lot of these guys are AAA guys. They're getting at bats because of injuries, because of trades. Like Ian Anderson could go out and pitch a really solid game here. Like his MO is ground ball with some strikeout upside. A big prospect with the Braves. Like why not Ian Anderson? Like I get the love for Lindblom and I understand that. But like looking at this lineup overall, like you have to have a little interest. Like this is the number 2 prospect in the Braves organization, a team that pumps out prospects like it's going out of style. Like you got to respect all that. You got to respect like how good of pitcher this guy has the potential to be.
Yeah, big arm, and like a lot of young pitchers, big arm, but he has control issues.
But it's the same argument we just made for Lindblom, right? Like look at the walk rate on all these guys that are playing for the Red Sox tonight. They're all free swingers. So I'm a Red Sox fan. I watch them way too much. They chase. Like no JD is a huge upgrade in this lineup.
I didn't know Munoz was a Red Sox. Just learning this right now. Was he at their alternate site or something, or has he played this year?
Listen, I can't tell you what to expect. Like we know what Munoz is. Like we watched him with the Cardinals. What was it last year? He's not a walk guy. He's not a power guy. Like it's just
Last year in 180.
I didn't know he was with the Red Sox until this morning.
Yeah,
if that makes you feel better.
I did. Well, yesterday I learned that Jordy Mercer was a Yankee. I'm like, Jordy Mercer is a Yankee? I had no idea. Every single day, it's like, I was not. I feel like we
don't have AAA. We don't have minor league baseball. It's hard to know who's where when they're in the alternative sites and stuff.
Yeah, and that'll explain why. Oh, did what's his name not crack the lineup today? Bubik or whatever his guy's name. The guy struck out 4 times yesterday. Is he not in there for Boston?
Dahlbeck.
Dahlbeck's
not in there.
Bubik's a pitcher for Kansas City. I'm confused.
I was gonna say, yeah, you got your young guys mixed up there. Bobby Dahlbeck.
Why not? Like, why is he not in there? Like, just give the guy some. I know he got crushed yesterday.
he's a big time prospect too, with a ton of raw power. Like, if you've pretty much punted this season, like he should be in there every day. Like, let him get at bats.
Yeah, like what do you have to see? You got to see what you have in Lynn or Munoz. Yep. I mean, come on, what's the point? All right, yeah, but you're right. That lineup is bad, and Anderson, he's a guy that's not going to go 80 innings or 7 innings. You don't need him to do that. You're hoping for 5 or 6 in the W, and I think the W is on layaway, assuming he pitches okay, because that Boston pitching staff. God, what was the stat I saw the other day? You might have saw it as far as how many actual starting pitchers have made it like to the 5th inning or through 5. It's a really low number. Their pitching.
Oh yeah, the rate of like guys going through the order 3 times is like at like we're getting to all-time lows this year.
Is every game a bullpen game for Boston? It just seems that way. they're all bullpen games.
They're rough, man. They're rough. They don't know what to do. Like, they don't know what to do. It's gonna be a rough season for the Boston Red Sox and Boston Red Sox fans.
Julio Urias at 9.7K on DK. Like, I cannot talk to that. That's an outrageous price. Speaking of guys that they won't let him go deep. It's just not happening. And his K rate's not where you want him to be anywhere. Like, he's a big prospect, tons of hype on him, and it hasn't really fully come through. And he's been okay, I guess, but you can't justify that price. Lester at 9.4 is absurd. Keuchel I can't do. Plesac's an interesting one, right? Explain to me on Plesac, because he's coming back. He was a part of the whole Clevenger thing where they broke the team rules. They didn't trade him away. I guess
Clevenger tried to hide it, and Plesac didn't.
So he was at the alternative site, I assume working, but we have no, to my knowledge, unless I might have missed something. I meant to try to check that out. Hopefully you have it for me if there is anything. Maybe chat does. What was he doing at the alternative site? Is he stretched out? Is kind of my question, because I don't know.
I think he's stretched out. I don't like. He admitted it that he did everything they asked him to do. Like, they traded away Clevenger. Like, and Clevenger is not a bad arm by any means. So, obviously they did not like what happened there. I think we're going to see a decent workload. Like, it's the Indians. Like, if there's one team in baseball that lets their guys go, like, Cleveland's that team. So, like, if we think that Plesac's going to get 95 pitches against Kansas City, like, he has to be in the conversation, but we don't know. Like, there's no beat writer report about it. I've been looking. We don't know. Nobody knows. Like, they're being very tight-lipped about it. So he could easily go out and throw 60 and be like, all right, you threw 4 or 5 innings. We saw that you're ready to go. And, like, it's so, like, that's the risk with playing Zach Plesac today. The upside's there. It's a matchup against Kansas City. Look what Bieber did to this team yesterday. Look at the bottom of this order. Like, Starling's in there. Lopez is in there. McBroom is in there. Righty. Like, yeah, like, the strikeout upside's tremendous. Like, he has double-digit strikeout upside in this matchup. But
he hasn't pitched since the 8th. And, like, again, I just don't – he could throw 60 baseballs or he can throw 95 baseballs, and neither would surprise me.
That's the risk.
Wild card. Yeah.
Like, that's the risk. Like, the matchup's fantastic. That's the risk. I do have him on one of my 3 teams. Like, I think the risk is worth the reward. If he does go 90 pitches, he could put up, 25 to 30 fantasy points.
So last 2 seasons, we check out the matchup here against Kansas City. Not a monster K rate. The K rate's bigger this year, 20.3%. The walk rate is at 7.6%. But like you said, this Kansas City lineup, it's loaded with Ks. Starling at the bottom. McBroom at 31.5%, collectively at 24.5. Franco's a contact hitter, and so is Merrifield. Also Lopez, not a big stick, but he'll ground out and he'll pop up and things like that. And he'll spray a single to the left side every once in a while, but not somebody you're afraid of. But like you said, also the W's on layaway, right? Matt Harvey's in the mound, so just go 5, and you assume you get that. It's baseball, weird things happen all the time, and you can hit rockets to right to fielders and they're outs automatically, and bloops go for singles, and that's just the nature of the game. Question in chat: is it ridiculous to go Lindblom and Anderson and just load up on all the bats like in Coors? Like, that's for sure something you can do today. My thought on that is I just don't love. It's 12, but I don't love that total. I thought if you force me, I would bet the under. I'm kind of a Gausman apologist to some degree. Again, there's no story as well too. I'm not going to sit here and tell anybody you can't play Coors. And I think there's amazing pivots. We'll talk about the bats in a second. But we talked about Matt Harvey. I like Cleveland. I like the Mets there versus Wojbom, who gives us so many homers. There's another team I was isolated. Oh, the Braves versus your Red Sox. There's plenty of pivots away from Coors, but like, is that a plausible way to make a lineup? I'm not going to discourage it because I don't think there's a monster opportunity cost at pitcher today. So what are your thoughts as far as Lindblom, Anderson, and all the bats?
Well, my biggest issue with it is like you can go Lindblom or Anderson and get like Valdez or Plezek and still get all the bats. So like,
Yes.
That's the argument. I don't know if you have to do that. Like if you like stack like the Giants, because we like the Giants side more than the Rockies, spoiler alert. Like if you stack the Giants, like you can play Yaz at whatever his ridiculous price is and still get like Valdez Lindblom or Valdez Anderson or Plezek Anderson. Like, so that's the thing. Like, I don't think you're going to have to do that. I'm with you. I don't love Colorado. So like, I don't know if I'd game stack it, like with that answer in Donnie's question. I don't know if I necessarily would like game stack that game. But like, say if you want to go like Giants, Braves, and you need that salary, I get it. Like if you want to go like two top end, like two strong 4-man stacks. But yeah, I don't think I do it, Dean. I don't think like I trust Gaussman enough not to get blown up in this spot. So like I don't think I need to do it. If you love the Rockies and Giants stack and those are the two pitchers you end up on, go for it. Like go for it. I'm not going to talk you off of it. I'm just making the counter argument that I don't think you need it.
I agree with that point. And like you said, it's not that much more for Valdez. Valdez, kind of some walk issues in the last couple of years, 11%. That's not great as far as the number of the Ks, 22.4% as far as the last two seasons. But, if we jump to just this year alone, 26% Ks, the walk rate is much better at 5.8%. And this is a Texas team that doesn't walk. And there is some contact hitters for your on this side for what it's worth. There's also plenty of Ks and Gallo, Tavares. The young kid looks overmatched so far. Guzman as well. It's a small sample as far as the Ks too. But and that's another one where the W feels like it's on layaway. Minus 278 as far as the Astros today. Just go 5 or 6 innings. And the price on DK, 8.1K, just seems wrong. If this feels like it should be higher. And again, like some cheapies, Pilar is 3.2K. Well, there's a couple of the Cubs, like you talked about it. Hayward cracked the lineup, I assume, right? 2.3K versus Chad Kuhl. And he's actually been competent this year, Jason Hayward. Good for him because, he's been rough the last couple of years. Nice bounce back so far. And like it's just so easy. So if people are new to baseball this year, DK, it was really, really hard to find like actual, real live hitters that are in the lineup at like 2.5 or 2.8 or 2.7. And when it would happen, those guys will be popular. But now they stretch the ceiling up to like guys that are 6K a little more often. But there's so many guys that are in the 2.5s and the 3s. Like you said, you can get anything you want. That's just the nature of building lineups these days on DK.
I'm going to answer that question in chat. J3, don't play Lester. There, I answered your question.
Yeah, I wouldn't play Lester. Like, why? Like, what's the best? He can go like 7. He's all like, if things are going well and BABIP's on his side, he can go 7 innings, but he's probably not going to strike out more than like 4 guys. Like, he could do that.
Don't play him.
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason to play him tonight.
Yeah, it doesn't. He's not on my radar, and I'm pretty sure he's too expensive too, for what it's worth.
No, yeah, he's like a guy that doesn't like, even if he doesn't get blown up here, he scores like 16 points, 17 points. Like he's pitching to contact, trying to generate ground balls. Like he's so expensive. Like it's more that. Like the matchup is fine. It's against Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. It's a good ballpark for pitchers, but like you're likely, I will say likely not going to win a tournament with Lester because he really doesn't have a ceiling. It's not John Lester from 4 or 5 years ago where he attacked hitters and tried to strike people out.
The way you win a tournament with John Lester is if everybody else that like it just blows up around him and he's like just
you need 2 home runs from every guy in your lineup. Points. 2 home runs from every guy that you put in your lineup, and you might win a tournament with Lester.
The chat's pointing out. I mentioned Hayward. Ben Gamble's 2.6K leading off from Milwaukee. Like it's just those are the things that unlock everything you want as far as the hitters. So that's why you don't necessarily have to spend down at the pitchers. All right, give me a summary as far as arms. We'll talk about bats in a second.
No, I think we're on the same page. I think we're both very high on Valdez. We both think that Lindblom is a cheap option. Love Anderson for large field tournaments. Love Pleasic for large field tournaments. And like, you got to respect how good Aaron Nola has pitched this season. So if you want to take the most talented pitcher on the slate, it's probably Aaron Nola. So I think it's a day where I'm going to have a very tight pool when it comes to pitching. You kind of like, you talked about Urias really quick. You can make an argument, very slight argument for him on FanDuel. Like if you're playing like a $5 or $3, whatever their big tournament is today, that's very top heavy. He's 7.3K over there. He pitched really well against Arizona already once this season. You worry about like how deep he'll go, but like the matchup's fantastic. He's just too expensive on DraftKings.
No Starling Marte. There's only one Marte left. Starling was traded for the Marlins. If you guys missed it, so he's no longer in that lineup. All right, let's talk about catchers. Is it just a punt and move on situation? By the way, we didn't mention Patrick Corbin, which seems weird. Just give him a shout out. Like in theory, there's some upside. We've seen it in the past, but I'm not really on Corbin. I was going to say Realmuto is interesting for tournaments. I'm not saying Corbin's bad. He's one of the better pitchers pitching today, but it's just he doesn't really fit the slate for me. You feel free to touch on that if you want to, and then talk about some catchers.
Yeah, like I did say on the expert survey today that like, that question where like, who are you most afraid to be underweight on? It's Corbin. Like that is for me. Like I don't have interest in Corbin today. And if he does really well, like I'll get crushed. I'm more likely to stack or take a couple power bats against Corbin than I am to play him. But as far as like catchers go, like I think you can definitely pay up for like a Grandal or a Travis d'Arnaud, even like a Gary Sanchez today. It really comes down to like how much salary cap do you have when you're done building? Catchers like a last in possession for me. Like you can go down. There's like 5 catchers under 2.2K today. So like there's plenty of punts that you can play at catcher today. Stallings is probably one of my favorites. 2.7K going up against John Lester, pitch to contact. This guy's a big contact hitter. You're going to get balls in play with Stallings, whether it's a single or a double, likely not home runs. So like that's interesting. But like my favorite like pay up option is probably Grandal. Again, you're going to hear me talk about the White Sox a lot. I'm not a huge Michael Pineda fan. He tends to groove fastballs over the middle of the plate, and they tend to go over the fence. So I do like the White Sox today. But, yeah, I think catcher is just one of those positions where wherever you end up, you're probably in the – like there's no catcher that's going to be chalk, right? Like I guess I could pull up projected ownership really quick, but –
I don't think so. Maybe Joey Bart, maybe?
Joey Bart's 19%. Like, sure, I get it. I get why, but yeah, I don't think I will have any Bart. Maybe one team. Like I have a team that I really like with a Brave stack on DraftKings, and like I'm still debating on who the catcher is going to be. I might play Bart just because he's going to be popular. Because my secondary stack is going to be like 2% owned.
Yeah, we got I don't mind doing the Bart, man. Like you said, 19% is a little too high ideally, but I'm okay with that. 4K in cores. Gray has had his struggles historically, more so against lefties than against righties, but still, in 4 ABs on layaway in cores, almost definitely. If things are going really well, you get 5, you're locked into those 9 innings for the road team, no matter how well things are going. But it's a wants versus needs situation for me. Catcher is the last man I'm putting in basically in my lineups, and I'll see what I have, but I don't. I want to get Realmuto. I want to get d'Arnaud, but I don't need them. That's sort of where I'm at. How about first base? Because first base feels like a position you can't. Usually, first base is like, oh, didn't first base used to be good? What happened to first base? But today, you got Belt in Coors Field. You got Alonso against Wojpom. You got Santana versus Matt Harvey. You got Freeman against that terrible Boston bullpen. Yeah. It's like we could keep going, but at the top, those are my 4 favorite. And I'm having a hard time deciding. That's another one of those where it's like, I guess whichever one fits the rest of the lineup is where I'm going to land. What say you?
Oh, man. Who's in the stack? Like Braves, I'll play Freeman. Mets, like Dom Smith is easier because like you can play Dom Smith in the outfield and you can still get Alonso. So like it's easier to make that stack work finally. Brandon Belt's your like cash game first baseman. Like nobody can argue that. Like he's 4.2K.
It's too cheap.
DraftKings forgot that the Giants were going to Coors today. Like all those guys are like ridiculous. So
except for Yastrzemski, they remember for Yastrzemski for some reason.
But he's been that expensive though. Like he's been the best hitter on the team. So yeah, I think you could play just about anybody you want.
Oh, I think I just lost your audio. Is that my end or your end? Can you hear me?
I had to sneeze and it won't come out. I was talking really fast because like I felt it coming and like I muted myself and it never came out. But yeah, like Freeman's probably my favorite for tournaments. But Belt's your cash game play. Really, you're probably going to be playing the first baseman in your stack on most teams today. If you want a low-owned like tournament upside play, Nunez from Baltimore. Gerardo is not good. I think Baltimore is so sneaky today, and nobody is going to play them. So yeah.
I was going to guess that you were going to say Bellinger or Rizzo are currently projected at 6% each, respectively. And it's not because they're bad. It's just because there's better plays today. But for sure, Rizzo, you can roll out there versus Cool. I know it's not the greatest ballpark for homers in Pittsburgh. I think it's a little more homer-friendly for lefties and righties. Correct me if I'm wrong as far as the ballpark stuff in Pittsburgh. Yep. Yeah, it's worse for righty power, better for lefty power. It's still not great.
Like, there's anybody you want to play at first base, you can play.
It is loaded indeed. What about second base, the keystone position? It's not loaded. Spoiler alert. Second base is not good. It's the opposite of loaded. Is this just a salary saver because we're considering salary cap restrictions, or do we spend up on a guy like Hero? We spend up on a guy like Brandon Lau? What are we doing here?
Really quick, chat, Mark, Freeman only 200 more than Bell on FanDuel. Play them both. There you go. Simple.
They're both really good plays. And then what about Santana versus Harvey?
Yeah, like there's so many first basemen. As far as like second base goes, like Cano would be my favorite. Like I think Cano, like I don't think people realize like how good Cano has been this year. Like he's been fantastic. So when healthy, he's been really good. I think he's like the guy that like we're gonna see. I think Jeff McNeil is gonna be really popular. He's really cheap,
super cheap,
and yeah, like facing Wojciechowski. So like either one of those guys, like yeah, it's kind of the guys that I have, Dean. I don't want to like talk up a bunch of second basemen. Like I'm playing Cano and McNeil. I do have a Flores team, so like.
But he's not facing a lefty, so you can't play. I'm told you can only play him against lefties. Is that not true?
Oh, it's course.
You can break these rules. McNeil's like 2.5 on FanDuel, which kind of makes things work if you need a cheapie. 3.4 on DK is perfectly fine as well too. He's been kind of hot and cold this year, but I mean Solano at 4.7 is not necessarily ideal. I'm going to be a little less chorused in the field, I think. I mean, I'm not here to discourage the Giants. If they're going to be super chalky over everybody else, I'm probably not on that in my tournaments, just because I think the pivots are really strong and they're really good. Sure, if the Giants go out there and put up a 10 spot, I'm in trouble, but don't think that happens. It's Kiki Hernandez. We know what Dodger Lineup just said. I imagine he's going to crack it, but 3.9 is about what he should be, I suppose. What's up with Altuve? I don't know. Maybe today's the day, but I mean, I'm sure there's some theories. Chat's going to. How long until chat mentions garbage cans? Cesar Hernandez just leading off on FanDuel is a nice price against Matt Harvey, and it's funny. Like Matt Harvey, you're only getting 2 at bats against him, right? At most, some of these guys, he's not going to go beyond like 4, I don't think. And if things are going well, maybe he goes to 5 and you're in trouble anyway. But Harvey, I don't think has made it into the 4th inning yet this year. It's not been good. He's just, I mean, good for him for making the effort. I appreciate it. He probably has got a bunch of money and he's just, trying to he wants to he's athletically competitive. He's not getting paid. He's getting paid. He's making the league minimum, I assume. But I appreciate the effort. But he probably shouldn't be in the majors anymore. All right, you got anything else at second base? Hira at 3.2 on FanDuel, I like, by the way. That's a good play. What else do you have for me at second? Are we moving on? We're talking third base, right?
We're talking third base. Yeah, we're moving on. Third base, you're gonna see so much ownership on Nolan Arenado because of how scarce the position is. Like
What are we
Jose
seeing?
Ramirez is a fan.
I'm refreshing. I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize. Maybe we can show it on the screen using our lineup HQ because I'm curious. I didn't think Arenado was going to be that super popular. By the way, this is a good time to mention, Stevie. I apologize. I should have mentioned earlier. Tomorrow, NFL is around the corner. Tomorrow, there is a show at 1 o'clock, the NFL lineup Q&A show with Blender and Tambo. They'll take you guys all through the lineup HQ and show you how to work it as far as building lineups NFL. We're like 9 days away from opening kickoff on Thursday. Take it away. What do you have for me at third base?
Yeah, I think Nolan Arenado is going to be like super chalk. Like we have him projected at 30%. We have Longoria at 27%. That's 57%, Dean. So like if you're not playing those two guys, you can pretty much play whoever you want at third base, ownership wise. Jose Ramirez against Harvey obviously is a great play. Like Devers, I know Anderson, like we talked about Anderson, like Devers is probably the one guy that like worries me the most, but I like Austin Riley as well. Like I think that, this is a great spot for what's that?
He's cheap.
Yeah. Like, salary is not really like the thing that like you're super worried about on the slate, but yeah, like Austin Riley. And then like, if you really need a cheap bat, you can play Yoshi from Tampa going up against Tanaka. A lot of hard contact in that matchup. Like if he's not striking out, there's a good chance that like hard contact is made. So I think like if you're not playing Arenado or Longoria, like don't look into ownership too much on this slate and just kind of play the guys that you like.
Yeah, I mean, Gaussman can be reverse splitsy, so I understand the Arenado. It's Coors Field, obviously, 6 total. I'm probably more likely going to be on Jose Ramirez. Maybe that's contrarian. I don't know. According to our ownership projection, like you said, Arenado is currently at 30%. Ramirez currently at 14%. This is DK specific. Chris Bryant's back in our world. Just, worth noting. He's playing baseball this evening. 10% is his current projection. And Riley is like, 2.3 or 2.5 on FanDuel. I think he's 2.5. And the other guy I'm thinking of, the outfielder, is 2.5, 2.3. Duvall. We played both those guys yesterday. It worked out for us. I'm back. I'm happy to go back to those guys if I need salary savers. More so on FanDuel and on DK because DK.
Chris Bryant's back too.
Yeah. Hey, I said that. You weren't listening to me. The score is 1-1. We got to have the rubber match at some point later on in the show in the next 8 minutes. We're going to yield soon enough to crunch time. You got Kevin Roth, chief meteorologist, telling you what's going down weather-wise. And, of course, Cheese is good. Goat of Goats, 2-time millionaire winner. We'll give you all the baseball information you guys need up to lock. Jump back to shortstop. What do you have for me?
Sorry, I was building a game stack of Baltimore, New York on FanDuel just because like it kind of went together well. So Swanson, I think he is like one of the top options. Him and Lindor. I like Tim Anderson against Pineda. Like shortstop's a position that I think you're paying up for on the slate. Yeah, there are some cheap options at shortstop that you can play. I think we'll see pretty decent ownership from like Jimenez from New York, but like shortstop is a position on this slate that I want to pay for. Anderson, Turner, Lindor, Swanson, Carlos Correa, Javi Baez, like all those guys. I want to pay up at shortstop. Like I think shortstop's a position that like you save some money at catcher or you save some money elsewhere. Like we have a ton of cheap outfielders. Like you pay up at shortstop tonight.
Do we have a tool? We do. We have Slate IQ, right, that says what the most likely popular ownership is going to be from a stack perspective. Is that correct?
Pretty sure. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if you can show that. They're asking about it in chat, but I'm not sure if Devin can pull it off on the flyer, if you can either. But that's definitely a thing that we have. I don't have it up in front of me, unfortunately. Oh, there it is. It's on the screen, Stevie. Are you watching the screen? I don't have the screen up in front of me. So
good job, Dean.
My computer has been scuffling these days. It's on its last legs. It's like 2 years old. What's going on here, Mac? But what are we seeing as far as the most popular stacks according to Slate IQ?
I'm trying to pull it up, Dean.
Oh, I just bought some time. Wait, you're not watching the screen either?
No, I'm not. Like I usually share the screen. Like I'm the one that's usually sharing the screen.
Well, you called me out for doing the exact same thing you're not doing.
Listen, I got on the show late.
Understood.
Let's see. Paying up at what position today? Salary by position.
As you're doing that, I should say we have a few umpire stuff out there. I'm only really concerned with the extremes. Some new series starting, so we don't have all the umpire data. Once you get one, they all rotate. You can figure out the next day. It's pretty easy. We have one extreme hitters umpire, for Corbin and Nola for what it's worth. So a hitter's umpire for Nola and Corbin. Did that buy you enough time?
Yeah, outfield 1 and 2, first base, and then shortstop.
What?
Outfield 1 and 2, first base, then shortstop.
What was the question I asked? What was I? Was I asking which?
You asked me where people are going to spend their money today. And
no, I was saying which stack as far as most popular stacks as a collective. Do we not? We have that, don't we?
Yeah, we have that.
Okay.
I thought you were asking like most popular stack on the field today is the Giants, followed by the Rockies.
Okay, fair enough. That's we kind of could have guessed that, I suppose, but I think the slate is also pretty spread out. With just play what you want. I think. I don't think any stack's going to be too heavily owned. Maybe I'm wrong, but I like a lot of stuff, so I'm perfectly fine moving away from something if I think it's going to be too chalky. Give me some outfielders you like.
All right, so my top play on the entire slate is Eloy Jimenez. I talked about this on the podcast. He profiles amazing against Michael Pineda. Like, Pineda throws fastball slider over like 93% of the time against righties, dating back to like 2017. And small sample size, we haven't had Jimenez a lot in the bigs, but like everything that like we've seen from him is like he crushes these pitches. So I love him today. Like, I'm telling you, he's like my top guy. I have him as much as I could actually get him into lineups today. So love him. I like Yaz. Like, I think you definitely can pay up for Yaz on this slate. I think there's plenty of ways to make it happen. Love the Braves outfielders. Love the Mets outfielders. Conforto's way too cheap across the industry. Josh Naylor on DraftKings is really interesting. He's super cheap, but like I like Tyler Naquin on DraftKings as well, just as much. He's like 2.6K, and like he's been crushing the ball. Like, he's batting over 340 over the last 10 games. So I think that he's an interesting like pivot off of the cheap guys. And I had Slate IQ up, so I'm sure I'm missing somebody. Brantley's the other cheap guy, right? And Jason Hayward.
Gamble. I don't know if you mentioned Gamble or not.
Gamble's really cheap. Yeah,
it's so easy to make this stuff work as far as you basically can get the premium bats. And it's interesting because I was gonna make the point. It's really easy to get whatever bat you want. We have the boomstick, Nelly Cruz, against a lefty.
Nelson Cruz, yeah.
And he's 2% projected owned. Like, what up with that? I mean, isn't that just weird?
I think it's just like there's so many guys, like you forget, right? Like I'm looking at my sheet from the podcast last night, and like it says Nelson Cruz. Like, that was one of the guys that like made sure I wrote down. So, and I don't think I put him on any team that I built.
Yeah, he's 6.2K, but again, we don't care. Like, if we have the salary, and we do, just play him. Again, not necessarily in your one lineup or your two lineups, but if you're playing 10, get him in one. Get him at least one. Come on. And I'm with you. I think somebody was asking in the chat about that Chicago stack, and Minnesota's got a solid bullpen, but if you get the Pineda, if the score is 6-1 in the fifth, they're not going to roll out their best arms. Like, they're not going to use their best arms on you. Like you mentioned, Naylor at 2K on DK. I'm trying to remember. I was reading Cheese's article today, and I wish I had it up in front of me. I should be better prepared, but I think Kansas City only has like one, maybe two lefties in their bullpen. Is it one? And their lefties recently worked as well, too, for what it's worth. And this is going to turn into a bullpen game. Like, even if Harvey's pitching well, he's not going beyond 5. And Cleveland does, they do like the hook sometimes as far as their outfielders, the lefty-righty stuff. But who's still lurking? Who's the guy on the bench? Luplow is available, which is somewhat concerning if the situation calls for it. But, hey, he's super cheap. Give me your favorite stacks. Give me a guy that's going to homer before we step aside and make way for crunch time.
I did not realize that Miguel Sano is batting leadoff for Minnesota today, for what it's worth.
I love that. That's awesome.
Favorite stack for me today is Atlanta, like by far. Like, I love the Braves today. Braves, Giants, White Sox, Mets. I think all these guys are fantastic plays. And then like Jimenez, I just said, like, I think he's the guy. Franmil Reyes hits a home run today as well too.
Oh, Franmil hits one off of Matt Harvey. Like, that's happening. He seems like the kind of guy he's going to take advantage of wounded Matt Harvey. All right, we got to step aside. We got to make way for crunch time. You got Cheese is good. You got Kevin Roth, chief meteorologist, on what's going on weather-wise. He was Stevie. I was Dean. This was Baseball. Like and subscribe. We're out of here. Holler.